Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the B Team Podcast. As always, they are live on the Jackrabbit Illustrated Facebook and Twitter. We are also live on the FCS Fans Nation YouTube for the fans, by the fans. Beyond that, you can catch the show if you don't catch it live anywhere you get your favorite podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere in between. As always, the B Team is brought to you by our title sponsor, Kubota Dealers of South Dakota. If you need a tractor, utility vehicle, construction equipment, zero-turn motors, parts, service, and more, there's always a Kubota dealer near you with 8 locations across the great state of South Dakota. Stop in today and get yourself into some orange equipment. We would also like to take a moment to thank our segment sponsors, Culver's, Brookings and Watertown, Jackrabbit Central, and Cubby's Sports Bar and Grill. And now, B-Team Mafia, the time's arrived. Here's Ben, Chad, and Brendan.
B-Team Mafia, we are back. It is marker week. And we have our special friend and guest, Matt Fraase from the Big Boy Pod, joining us per tradition. So very excited to have you, Matt. Thank you for joining us from all the way down in Tejas.
You know, it's rare that I'm further south than you gentlemen, but on marker week, it just feels wrong, to be honest. But thanks for having me on, guys. This has become a fun tradition that I talk to my wife, Allison, every year about. I go, she's like, you do other things with other pods? I'm like, oh, the Jackrabbit one, I hope, is always a guarantee because it's fun to jump on with you great folks. And I don't know what I got to do to get a caricature on one of these episodes, but that intro, ooh, every time I see it, just outstanding. So, thanks for having me on.
I'm on the music a little bit to start with, but it's really grown on me. So it's
yeah, that intro was outstanding. I know you put a lot of work into this, Chad. So I really appreciate you guys having me on. This can be fun.
That one was Brendan, though. He gets full credit. Brendan and the other guy here. I guess he's on this side. To me.
I'll talk to my sister about the caricature for you. She's the one who put that info or put that graphic together. So
maybe Ben could whip up something in sans serif and do a JIAI with your name under it.
He'll put at least 10 seconds of effort into it. It's going to be really just.
There you go. Let AI do the work.
If he uses AI at all.
I didn't for the title slide. Now I'm going to.
What? You didn't? Nobody could tell.
Be the most
that wasn't AI.
Title slide.
Are you sure?
Whatever.
Oh, I was so surprised.
Dear AI, make me a title slide that looks like it's from wish.com.
It's not even, that's mean to Wish. That's like, I don't even know. Like it's from a typewriter, a big typewriter.
Oh, it wasn't typewriter. It wasn't.
Speaking of wish.com.
Okay.
I feel like we faced the wish.com version of the USD Coyotes last week.
No, they
considering
were they're very good.
Well, I'm just saying they've looked a lot better this year. They did not look very good against us, but I think as other people have talked, that's just how good the Jacks are this year. Some things went wrong for USD. I think there was an interception right before half, which turned into 3 points for us, whereas it could have been 3 points or more for them. That was a massive swing in the game and had to just be a kick in the gut for them, especially after the first quarter they had to then go down 17-3 going into half. And then they would just look demoralized coming out in the second half, and SDSU just kind of took over from there. So, overall, obviously a convincing victory, 37-3. I was watching the game of shenanigans with some people, and I said the best part about this isn't that we won, but just that we stomped on their hearts and hopes and dreams, and because they had aspirations of being number one in the country. And now it's not going to happen. And now they got to face a tough SIU team and a tough UND team. And we'll see where they go from here. But yeah, overall, awesome Saturday. And I don't know, that game outside of the first quarter couldn't have gone much better.
I mean, all right. So to quote a line that I just saw tonight from the beat writer of the hockey team I follow. The first couple drives were uglier than a pair of bowling shoes on the offense, which was weird. Because Mark and the boys, Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch, they don't get overamped, they don't get jumpy, but I think they were so irritated about hearing all the crap that was getting thrown around that week about you haven't won twice in the dome, 2 years, yada yada yada. They were so spun tight that they wanted to kill somebody, and so they were a little bit off at the start. But when the only points you allow are a 50-yard field goal, like it's not a chip shot, not even 40. The closest they got was they're able to hit a 50-yard field goal. So they got the ball to the 33-yard line.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
their best.
They didn't even enter the red zone.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
I think not officially. Yeah. They got close, but then they had the penalty. So,
and I think the offense has so many weapons, it gets overlooked a bit how good this defense is.
100%.
I don't know about you, Matt, because you have more of a you do a really good job with the national aspect of things and everything like that. But the defense is honestly might be better than the offense. When you look at holding Montana State to 16 points, like everybody's losing their minds about, wow, the defense for Idaho did really well. They held them to 20 some, like held them to 16 and allowed them to score a touchdown once. And that was their worst game of the year. I don't know. This defense is insane.
It's honestly bonkers to watch South Dakota State in every aspect of the game. It's bonkers what's on paper and then to actually see it play out. It's not crazy from a North Dakota State standpoint, just because we've seen it so many times. And I've comped this team to the 2013, 2018 seasons. And a lot of people knock me and they go, what about 2019? We went 16-0, but I wasn't confident in 2019 NDSU to run the table the way I saw 23 seniors in 2013 and the big senior class of Easton Stick in 2018. And it's like watching SDSU out there on the field. I know you guys just don't want to hear comps of NDSU, but it really is like watching that. I have to get this in now because it's on my mind. And if I don't say it in this episode, I'm going to kill myself. The sexiest thing that I've ever seen on planet Earth was Mark Gronowski going off to the left side on a run play and blocking that linebacker into the end zone.
Like a legit block.
And then
out
getting
the back of the end zone.
Right into his grill, defending his guy. And I was like, God damn, this is the nicest. Jeez. It was absolutely beautiful.
I feel like
my wife doesn't watch these, does she?
No. I restrict her from the South Dakota State stuff. No. Shout out to Allison. She's at home with the 3 kiddos right now. She's got her own battles going on.
I feel like if there was a Mark Gronowski fan club, you'd be the president of it.
Well, he's just Easton Stick's my favorite player of NDSU history. Born and raised by my dad from a farmhouse grad from 1989, and just that moxie, that teamwork, that leadership, but also the like this undervalued play at every single level, whether it's run or pass. But beyond that, sticking to the USD stuff, yeah, you guys, from what I've seen in the last few weeks, #1 from PFF on offense and defense in the entire FCS. I mean, that's just bonkers. So when you guys are saying like, well, I think the defense might be better than the offense, you actually have a very tough decision to make there, because if you're statistically #1 in both category, I don't really know how you're supposed to pick which one is better. The other thing that I've seen with SDSU is, honestly, I have a question for you guys here. It looked like USD is exactly what we should expect out of SDSU every single week. And was it the mental motivation of like them not giving up a touchdown since that Hail Mary play? Is that what got them up for this game? And are there other games this season you've seen where you're just like, it just seems we're not up for the game, and that's the only reason we're not blowing the doors off of somebody? I mean, that's the outsider looking in perspective. Is that what we're seeing from this team? Because it looked like with USD, they wanted blood in the water.
Yes.
Yeah. I would say that there was some extra motivation for this game. Just from, I mean, the USD fans and players too, I'm sure were riding pretty high and muddy. And they thought, oh geez, we're on SDSU's level now. And, us as fans, and I'm sure our players were thinking, you're not, though. Like, and I think they wanted to go show them that like, yeah, you think you're on our level, but you're not quite there. And, if you're talking about games like, SIU or something like that, number one, SIU, I think, is a really good team. I think they're better than USD.
For sure.
Agreed.
But, I think that this team is that good where I think they know that they can win even without, the like having the motivation that they did for this one. And so, and I think we rotate guys in a lot just to keep guys fresh. And so, we're not necessarily blowing the doors off of everybody, but I mean, they're usually convincing wins, even if, the box score might not look that way at the end. But if you watch the whole game, it's like, well, it's never in doubt. So, I think, but obviously, to your point, there was definitely some extra motivation in this one.
Yeah.
I mean, total offense is number 9 in the nation. Total defense number 1. That's a deadly combination for any squad out there. And USD, they just didn't look like they belonged on the same field. I'm not sure how many teams are going to look that way versus SDSU this year. It was bonkers.
I think part of it is USD's ranking was a little hollow. Like you couldn't argue with them being where they were based off of their resume and everything, but they kind of got catapulted up before the UND game for NDSU, where it went and back then NDSU had beaten Central Arkansas, who at the time was looking really good and ranked, and Eastern Washington had just started getting ranked. So then they beat NDSU, and NDSU had destroyed those teams. So everybody jumped them up, and then NDSU stumbles, and then they stayed up because you can't drop them because, well, this their signature win dropped, so we're going to drop them. You can't do that. So they stay up, and it felt a little hollow. You watching the Murray State game, it wasn't that Murray State was completely inept and got blown out. They just didn't finish drives. Indiana State felt the same way. So I think that was a little bit of it too. But to your point, it's really hard, and you know this more than anybody, being an NDSU fan. It is really hard to be that up for every game of the season. It just is. I think the Montana State game, I don't think that was a intensity thing as much as it was just like the NDSU teams of legend and lore. You needed to catch them early before that O-line started to gel and the defense really started to click. And I think that was a little bit of the Montana State game. The O-line just didn't look quite right yet. They didn't look right against Western Oregon. They weren't really. They bulldozed the defensive lines of good FCS teams better than they bulldozed Western Oregon's. And it's not because Western Oregon would be a top 10 team. Unlike Montana fans, I'm not going to lie to you. They just weren't gelling, at that time. And then, Southern Illinois, they had a really good defense. And yes, I think it was a little bit of an off day offensively for the Jacks, for sure. And a lot of that was caused by Southern Illinois, but I think SDSU was peaking a little bit on that one. To be honest, the game that scares me the most is Youngstown State because of the emotional toll of USD, huge emotion up game, NDSU, really huge emotion up game. And now you're making the longest road trip in the Valley to a dangerous team. And that game makes me nervous.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Before we move on from that extra motivation point, Matt, I was going to ask you, as far as going back a couple weeks, NDSU when they played UND, obviously for NDSU, that's a game where you're going to have some extra motivation. You don't want them to get that trophy back, and then you go up there and that happens. And I think before that it was like, well, USD caught them in the dome, and we said, well, if they had an extra quarter, they would have won that game. But I think after that UND game, it's like, oh boy, where's NDSU at? And so what are your thoughts on that in terms of, how their performance was in that game, and what do you think went wrong there?
Yeah, I kind of had a spiel on that on the FCS Fans Nation podcast after that week. And that's where I officially declared the NDSU dynasty dead. I've stood on a hill by myself in tailgate lots for the last 5-6 years that SDSU is not NDSU's biggest rival. UND just hasn't beat us yet. And when it happens, you're going to feel something in your gut and in your heart that's going to burn so hard. It's not even going to be comparison to SDSU beating you, even in Frisco. And
Is that-
UND. Oh, go ahead, Chad.
I was just gonna say, is that because we beat you multiple times, so you've just gotten used to it, or
I just think like
The
there
guy's
is
nice
a.
enough to come on here.
I think there's a Chad. I think there's 15% respect from NDSU fans towards SDSU, but true diehard NDSU fans, I think there's 0% towards UND. Like absolutely none. Like not 1%. And UND loss was the first time that I saw former players, and I'm not going to name them all on the podcast, on Twitter, and media members bringing up change to NDSU in terms of coaching staff, culture, athletic stuff. Like former players through SDSU kicking our can in Frisco, to you guys beating us in Dakota marker games, to down years in COVID season. We never saw that. But it was like once it happened against UND, like that's the team you don't lose, the hockey school that's 59 miles away that you just don't lose to. It flipped. And I said, people always said, well, the portal, the portal, the portal, the portal. Everybody dealt with the portal. And I think what UND's, to get to your question, Ben, what UND really exposed is the fact that all of Kleiman's guys really are off the ship. Like what NDSU lost with the portal was all of Kleiman's guys who took a dynasty and shot it into the stratosphere. And the reality is that NC's guys have backfilled it. And the development in NC's guys are not showing the same caliber of what we were used to with NDSU. And I kind of would be interested to your guys' points on this, but I really feel like NDSU, SDSU are in a flip-flop situation almost of those jackrabbit teams that we would scratch our head at, where we'd be like, they lost to USD? Well, they were supposed to get a seed and they lost that game? Well, where did the defense and tackling go? They were playing so well for 2 weeks. So it's kind of interesting. I think it's flip-flopped a little bit, and I'm sure we'll get more into that. But yeah, to your point, Ben, that UND loss was finally the Bison fans going, oh, okay, now we're not as good as we thought we were. That was a real eye-opener for a lot of people, and it was bad. They did not show up that game at all in any aspect. It was really embarrassing, to be honest.
So I'm not telling you how to feel, and I'm not telling you to think SDSU is your biggest rival. I'm going to put it this way. This is the way I've thought about it for a long time, because we lost to our in-state team first. So we've been through it, and then we've been through it in the most excruciating way possible. So I know what that feels like. And the way I've always put it is, it feels better to beat NDSU than it feels to beat USD. That's a better feeling. It hurts more to lose to USD than it does to NDSU. And I had this conversation, and I think people took it a little bit out of what I was trying to say, but it's because USD and then UND partially have not been even close to the programs that what our corresponding state school's been to. So if we lose to NDSU, it's not burn the program down, because you just lost for the last decade, you just lost to the national champions. Like nobody with the brain cells is going to be like, well, burn the program down. We lost to the 10-time national champions. Like, that's stupid. But you lose to USD or UND, who have never won a playoff game or won a playoff game. It's like, we have problems. What is going on? And it's embarrassing. And honestly, it's embarrassing. You feel embarrassed. And I think that's the way I look at it. I don't know if it's a question of true rival or bigger rival, or for me personally, if it's just that is the distinction between the two of them for myself. And I don't know if that makes any sense to you.
Yeah, I think moving forward, I mean, it's easy. I see where 9 out of my 10 Bison fans say it's all SDSU. It's because it is the respect thing. I think it's just, that's the team that you guys are the new James Madison. You're the new Georgia Southern. You're the new whoever for NDSU, but you're the new Sam Houston. Hey, we get through them. We can go win a national title. That's how Bison fans are feeling. Now, maybe not so much anymore. Maybe that's Montana State or some of these others. But that's really, you guys are at that level in Fargo now. I mean, it felt that way last year, where before that, honestly, in 2019, 2018, I hate to say it to you, Jack fans, I didn't really think about you in the stands. Every single thing I saw, every play, I thought to myself, how would that work against James Madison? That's all I thought about. And now everybody is only thinking about the Jacks. And it is a little bit, Brendan, you make a good point. Like, think about it, NDSU, SDSU prior to 2005. I mean, an irrelevant thing that basically didn't even exist. Sure, you could go on Wikipedia and see all the flip-flopping between blue and green, but who cares, right? I mean, it developed when we were undefeated and went into Brookings and we're about to finish off an 11-0 season. And one interception, it still hurts. But, that right there shot off that marker game, and the rest is history. So I don't know. I guess people can have different opinions on it. It's hard for me to erase everything I know from the 80s to the 90s and everything else. And I'm not old enough to remember those times, but I watched a lot of VHS tapes. And it's hard for me to not discount UND as the biggest rivalry. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Like, I think we have. I see it as two rivalries. I see it as a hate rivalry, and then a competition rivalry.
Right.
Where, like, yeah,
That's
that's yeah. And so I think you can have both. But I guess as far as the biggest, I don't know if it's even worth deciding which one's the biggest, but
that's just chasing your tail. And the other thing I've always told NDSU fans, because they're like, God, why? Because SDSU fans got chippy and shitty first. I'll be honest with that. But I've always looked at NDSU fans. I said, you lose to us 4 times in the playoffs, and then come and talk to me about your feelings.
It hasn't been 4 times.
We're almost there. Not the playoffs.
We're almost there.
So,
gosh.
But anyways, that's not the point of tonight. You did bring up a good point that I was thinking about as well. This does feel like a role reversal, because I was driving back from Fargo today. I had to run up, drop off a part, and then sprint back down to South Dakota. So that was a fun day. But
that's a full day of driving.
And then I did work in Brookings, so it was a day. But I was thinking, I'm like, Matt's gonna come on here, and we all listen to the big show. We all listen to the title, the flagship show of Effin, as I call the FFN.
I'm stealing that.
FCS Fans Nation.
That's good.
Call it Effin.
Well, if you listen to our podcast last week, you would have heard that.
So on the Effin show, I've heard you talk, obviously, and I'm like, he's going to come on here, and he's going, there's no chance, there's no way. And I was sitting there going, I've been in that seat enough on the opposite side of this, where you're not supposed to win, but it's the marker, and you do win. And I grew up making that argument the other way in this rivalry of having to, this is why I think we can win, when NDSU held all the cards. You're trying to argue with, and you're in a war against a tank, and you're throwing pebbles, and you better hit the perfect spot or you're going to be wrong. And so I was thinking about that, and it was funny how I was like, yeah, this is very similar. There's definitely ways NDSU can win the game. There
100%.
Absolutely are ways.
I mean, this feels, you talked about role reversals. This feels like one of those years where NDSU had a great team and SDSU had a pretty good team, and we would win the marker, and it would be a close game back and forth, and then it would get to the playoffs, and we'd see each other again, and NDSU would flex their muscle, and we would just get knocked out of the playoffs. Like, I would not be surprised to see that happen, honestly. Like, I mean, you can look at the game and you can say, well, on paper, obviously, like, SDSU's favored, but how many times was NDSU favored when they lost the marker game? Probably almost every time. And so it happens, like it, and it's, I mean, how difficult it is to go undefeated in a season. I mean, and like, when on those years where you had amazing teams, you'd say, yeah, but we're probably going to drop a game. Like, it's just so hard to go undefeated. So, I think it's just, we have to really I mean, be on our game to make sure that we don't stumble. And like Brendan talked about, after, and we talked about the motivation that we had for this USD game. They got to get up again, because if they don't, NDSU will come punch us in the mouth. I mean, they're still as down as they are compared to what they normally are. They're still a good team, and they still got some stuff going on. And so, and I think, they've had issues, but I think as the season goes on, teams get better. And so I can see NDSU fixing some stuff and being ready for the Jacks.
It's gonna be an interesting matchup. The thing with this is, and it might kind of blow your guys' mind a little bit. The 4th and 1 run by Cofield in 2019. Unless I'm wrong on this, Easton Stick never won in Brookings, and you have to go back to Carson Wentz in 2014, I believe, for when NDSU beat SDSU in Brookings. Besides that 4th and 1 run, which you guys took on a quarterback injury in that game. And let's be honest, it was looking pretty good for you in the first quarter until you had to go to a backup who wasn't playing good ball. My thing with this is, okay, everything on paper. First off, NDSU's, in my opinion, they're going to go up against a really good defense, but this NDSU offense really hasn't been getting enough credit for how good it is, because all NDSU fans have done is rip on Cam Miller nonstop for the last couple of years, myself included, and he's taken a huge jump up. Zach Mathis, Raja Nelson at wideout. We've got some skill players there. Raja looks like a linebacker running outside there. We have some underused running backs, I would say, but the TK Marshalls and even our backup quarterback, Cole Payton, these are quality ball players on that side of the ball. The lines are not getting the push that we're used to in the past. Will Mozart was just announced out on the defensive side. He's out for the year this year, so that's another big ding to the defense. But here's the thing, guys. Just like you said, Ben, like you said, talked about the paper, take it all off. Last year was the year where I remember sitting at B-dubs with you, gents, and I said it. SDSU is about to come in. They're going to whoop us by I think I picked them by 14 or 17 points. That was my mentality last year. And what NDSU did in that first half was unbelievable. I was just like, this is unreal. This is the game plan we've been waiting for. We're going to beat them here today. And boy, this is going to be the 2022 Bison team that everybody predicted to be this good. And I do not know. I didn't trust kind of Matt Entz's coaching staff for mental preparation against SDSU before last year's game. I think that was the ultimate mental breaker. I don't know how they can come back mentally to get up to go to Brookings and be this good of an SDSU team after what happened in 2022. I mean, seriously, that giving up that halftime lead was the most crushing thing. I think it drove them nuts the rest of the season. That was a type of game where for the first time I thought NDSU couldn't just take it 1 week at a time. I think that stuck in their heads all year. They had more injuries. They lost more guys to the portal, and then we saw what happened in Frisco. I am not convinced that this team is going to have the mental fortitude to go down into Brookings and come away from a victory against 29 seniors for SDSU. It is just, and it should be pretty obvious from your guys' standpoint as SDSU fans. Have you seen much of NDSU fans on Twitter? Have you seen much on the Facebook pages? Quiet. It is dead quiet. It was pretty quiet before Frisco last year. So
yeah, it was.
This would be one of the biggest upsets, I would say, in between the two schools, even on years where NDSU's only loss was to SDSU. I think this would be a massive upset, and I don't even care what the Vegas line is. It'd be pretty surprising to me. So to go off of your point, Ben, I think it's the mental thing that NDSU is going to have to overcome. I'm not so convinced that it's going to be possible. I just don't know how Mark G and the crew are going to give this one away. So,
yeah, go ahead, Brennan.
I was going to say, I think they're going to be the most motivated team in the world to start the game. But I don't disagree with you. If SDSU jumps on them and gets a lead or gets a lead at halftime, then I think they'll wear out and eventually mentally it'll be a problem. I don't think it's going to be a problem at the jump. Oh, he's just gone. That's what he's doing. So
Jeez, I
you
said
can
the season.
change your
I said the
shirt
season was
later.
over for everybody, and Ben's just like, "Yeah, that's good for me. I agree.
Right, I'm out.
15-0. I'm out."
Hey,
He's like,
Ben,
got what I
just
needed
because
out of
Matt
this
had
interaction.
5 costumes on just because Matt had a bunch of costumes during the big show doesn't mean you've got to go change. But I can't imagine. I'm sure, and I listened to the 1660 up there, the mouthpiece for the university and all that jazz, and they were like, nobody gives them a chance to win. There's a threat on Bisonville, forfeit the game.
Bisonville. Oh gosh.
Part of me, which I know it's Bisonville, but I bet you that made it to the team. Like I texted, like, we want to be honest, but we don't want to be like billboard material or anything for anybody on this show and have them say, well, these guys said something and we got all wound up. Like, we don't want to be those guys. I don't think there's anything I could do on this show that would motivate this NDSU team more than what their own fans are saying about them. I don't think it's possible.
That's true, and I doubt NDSU fans or NDSU players are thinking about this, but this is something NDSU fans are talking about. You guys are going to love this. They are talking a lot about Easton Stick's record for wins in the FCS with Mark Gronowski. I mean, they're talking about if you guys run the table, crap. Now they're gonna claim that they're as good as 2013, but they're not, which I don't think you guys are. Sorry, but that we could argue that maybe in February. That being said, it's like those are the things Fargo fans are thinking about, and maybe, just maybe, there would be nothing better than, I mean, if NDSU takes the rock here, are they as good as 2013, 2018? That certainly dies. That's out the table because you got to run the table, and maybe that puts a ding on Mark Gronowski's record before he wins 60 games and graduates after 6 or 7 years. I don't know what the COVID rules are, but those are some of the things Fargo fans are talking about. Now it's becoming big picture because the small picture is getting pretty ugly. So those are the things I'm hearing around the tailgates, if you will. But I'm curious about you guys with SDSU fans because you guys are always nervous for some reason, or maybe you're just pretending on Twitter for me.
No, it's a real thing.
Still the nerve. So I guess I'm curious, what is your biggest fear about NDSU against your team being so elite? What did the Bison bring to the table that you actually fear? Because I wouldn't see a lot if I were in your guys' shoes.
The quarterback runs a lot.
The silence says it all. Next question.
I don't want to step on toes again. I keep doing it all the time. I get yelled at by my wife after the show.
Yeah, we're trying not to talk over each other.
I will be honest. I have more things that I'm confident about in this game than I do that I'm worried about. And so I think the biggest worry is just that NDSU is going to come in super motivated and give us their best shot. I mean, and as the top dog, you're going to get that from every team. But I think that my biggest worry is that NDSU is going to come in and play their best game they had this year. And I think if they do that, then they do have a chance to beat SDSU. And that if we don't necessarily play our best game, so that's my biggest worry, I think, is just that the motivation factor and the fact that there's a chance that they could come in and play really well. But I have other things that I'll say later that give me confidence that that's not going to happen. But
well, it is crazy to see the gap between you guys and the rest, because when you go NDSU down the line, and I'm a big fan of I love the overall statistics of the whole FCS. And I mean, you just look at total offense of NDSU, and it's number 6 in the country, and it's still a top 20 defense. It's number 19 in the country. The rush defense is top 25. So when you look at just those 3 statistics, and you can find more which favor NDSU as a really good FCS team, plus the lore of NDSU, and still nobody on planet Earth is remotely picking them this game. I think that just really speaks to where SDSU is this year. It's pretty bonkers.
It is a rivalry game.
It does.
Anything
it also
can happen.
speaks a little bit, I think, statistically, if we're looking at overall statistics, I think it does speak a little bit to the new unbalance of conference scheduling in the Valley, where, and I've complained about this because I bitch and moan a lot, but SDSU's got the conference schedule sliders on hard mode, which happens in the Big Sky all the time. It happened to Montana State this year, except it's worse. It's what we had last year where it's all on the road. And sorry, Ron, you guys just don't have what we had last year. And that's nothing to be ashamed of. Like, you're still good. I don't know. It's that's a little bit. I'm nervous about if NDSU gets their offense cooking, because even the USD game, like, take the UND game out of it. It's a rivalry game. Weird shit happens. They house the opening kickoff. Like, that's not a normal game. Okay. The USD game, they were asleep. And you can tell a team's asleep when they do stupid shit like thinking that they fair caught the kickoff at the 1 yard line and start walking and go, oh no, the whistle didn't blow, and try, like, that's not a locked in team. They were not locked in for USD. That's my other part of USD being a little bit hollow. You can tell NDSU was not locked in. I think their problem right now is they have embraced, we're going to grind you and play from the lead so much that now you added even more than they used to. And now you add in the running clock, and they're even worse at coming from behind. So some of these games, like the USD game, honestly, they ran out of time. They really did. I mean, statistically, had more yards, first downs, everything, lost the game, ran out of time. That's reality. So my concern is SDSU gets off to a start like they had against Southern Illinois and USD in back-to-back weeks now. NDSU gets a touchdown or two, or gets 10 points, and then does what happened at Youngstown State. I know my boy YSU fans on here's watching is going to love this. He loves it when we bring this game up, but it was like Youngstown 2016 where the offense just never got the ball. And it's not that I'm scared of the NDSU defense, but I do respect their offense enough where you can make it very difficult to get off the field. And if you get a couple drives right away where you score a touchdown, Cam Miller definitely throws the ball well enough that if the run game starts and you get a couple drives, he can gash you. So that's my concern.
You know what NDSU really needs to do to win this game is the time of possession, like you just said. The ball control has to be there for them. They can't let SDSU's offense have a bunch of shots. And what I really think that NDSU needs to do is get consistent first downs and try not to substitute. If you let our defensive line rotate like they do, and even our linebackers are rotating a bunch, they're just, you can't combat that because there's no drop off when those fresh guys come in, and it's hard for an offense that's getting tired to play against these guys that are coming in with fresh legs. And so I'm surprised we haven't seen it, honestly, with other teams doing a hurry up and not subbing and not giving us a chance to sub. But if that's something that NDSU can do, is have a sustained drive where you get to second or third down and then you get another first down, and you can sub as little as possible and keep eating clock. I think is the key to success for NDSU, in my opinion.
And Ben, that's a great point. And again, role reversal, because I said the same thing about SDSU when we played them 4, 5, 6 years ago. But the reality is you guys are built just like those old Bison teams. You're so deep. You rotate the lines in. And I always said how SDSU beat NDSU, even in the years where we won the titles, was I called it quick, controlled ball. It was like you guys would come out there, you'd get up on the line to run your play quicker than normal, but not super fast. And that play would go for 4 yards or 5 yards just to move the chains enough, like a nice little slant play, pop. And then you get it off quick enough to where there wasn't the substitution, and you hand the ball off 3.5 yards, pop. But it wasn't this up-tempo Eastern Washington stuff, and it wasn't this hold the ball triple option crap. It was this perfect balanced flow that made NDSU sit back on their heels, and you guys were able to execute offensively. NDSU is going to have to do that, and if they keep Cole Payton out of the game and they let Cam Miller actually cook and let him go and let it flow, maybe they've got a shot. I'm not convinced Tyler roll. Yeah, Seth Meyer here says role reversal. I wouldn't bank on it, so we'll have to see what they come out with. But maybe they pull a first half in the Fargo Dome last year, and then they stick to it. We'll see.
I was going to mention, I obviously, somebody asked about coaches on the hot seat earlier, which I want your take on that. If you are looking for a new offensive coordinator, Brian Ferentz, I guess, is done at Iowa. And so you guys can go ahead and hire him, and I'd like to see that.
Yeah, we're. It's funny you said it's like you lose to your rival. You're not just gonna demand everyone to burn the thing down and start all over. Well, I mean, Fargo, that's kind of where it's at right now. So it's interesting times up here in the shopping mall of wonder up in Fargo.
Well, honestly, I think you guys, and I hope Jacks fans that are listening to us here, despite Matt's mind trickery here that got us saying why NDSU could win this game on our own podcast and talking about NDSU. Well done, sir. That is almost as well played as when you wore the SDSU shirt. You are a wizard. However, beyond, like, I hope also SDSU fans appreciate what we have going right now and appreciate that it doesn't last forever. I do think a little bit NDSU fans are learning, and they haven't accepted quite yet that it's not necessarily the FCS was bad. You were that good. I don't think the FCS is bad right now. I honestly think the FCS is probably better than it's been for a while when you've got 3 legitimate teams that if you don't have a super team like this with 30 seniors that won the Natty before, if SCSU doesn't exist, you have arguably up to 5 teams that wouldn't be insane to say could win the national title. And that hasn't been a thing for a long time. But I think a little bit NDSU fans, number one, would you learn to be the plucky underdog and fight back a little bit here? This isn't nearly as fun. It's fun when you're the big boys and we get to fight and punch up because then you're punching back down and we get to have the thing. But when you're just laying here taking it, it's just no fun at all.
You know, a boxer waits in the corner. He waits a few rounds and he'll get his little pops in. Floyd Mayweather, not a lot of KOs, undefeated,
right,
kind of in the back. I came on this podcast famously back in the day, amongst South Dakota, North Dakota. And I said, you're going to win. And then we're going to get NDSU will get a better playoff seed and they're going to go further in the playoffs. And they won the title. Yeah. That was a pretty flawless prediction. So I'm going to make you feel good here. I am very interested to see what happens in 2024. I need to see SDSU reload. I need to physically see it to really take that final, you guys take that final KO. Not that that's going to make NDSU better. They have their own issues. But will SDSU next year, and it's not what you guys are focused on at all, I am so intrigued to see, because I see the depth chart. Senior, this position. Senior, senior. Mark Gronowski. Northwestern looks like a cool school. You never know what can happen,
Hey,
so
stop it.
There's plenty of things that can occur. You never know. I'm just interested to see what 2024 looks like for the Jacks for the rest of the FCS. I do think you're far and beyond this year, but I am very intrigued about the FCS as a whole in 2024. And I guess I'll leave it at that. If you wanted a little bit of smack talk, there you go. I will say this, you guys, it's going to be really not fun on social media for you if SDSU drops this game, because you'll say what NDSU fans say. You'll say, we lost the battle. Frisco's the war. Hey, it's all about the Natty. Don't worry about it. But it doesn't.
If I see one and I'm gonna see it, if somebody goes, we don't play for rocks, we play for rings, and you got an SDSU badge, you better not have your actual name on it, because I will find you and shove that rock up your ass. Because that shit matters. Damn it.
Yeah, it does.
But I will tell you this, Matt. I'll tell you this. If it's this year or it ends up being 2 years or 3 years from now, you get that rock back. What a feeling. Whoa, let me tell you. It will be your most satisfying marker game ever. That 2016 game, I almost teared up.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, if NDSU wins this one, I got a tweet prepped, I think. I think I'll go with something like
it's a scheduled tweet.
SDSU fans forever have claimed that this game does not matter because they're only focused on titles, but this one stings. I'll throw a little role reversal in there, just a little bit.
Oh yeah, it'll hurt like so much. Oh God,
But what's crazy about SDSU, to give you one more compliment, I've got a bunch more, is I think you guys have the most ranked wins right now, whether it's the current top 25 or the former. NDSU has 0, whether it's the top ranked at the time or the current poll, which is crazy. And beyond that, SDSU is literally they're just so far beyond it. I just lost my thought. You guys are really good this year. That's all I know. So.
Hey, Matt, we were talking about our seniors, and the one thing that we keep talking about, at least in our group, is a little bit, it keeps coming up, and mostly I guess Matt gets the credit for it, is that we don't see a lot of your younger players playing, and we're kind of confused as to why that is. And we do see a fair amount of our younger players, especially at the skill positions, getting some time on the field. I don't know if you have any insights to that or how that might play into 24, because, like you said, you're curious to see how we reload.
Yeah, I think that is where I've called and I saw a few comments already here about that once I made that comment about the Jacks worries, but that comment was not about NDSU. That's where I come to the table and I say, I do think that NDSU dynasty is over. I think they're going to need some classes to get back to go compete for a national title down in Frisco, because the guys that are seniors on the depth chart right now for NDSU, there's a lot of them. They had to instantly jump in when these climbing guys were moving on. But that's not to say that would they have ever started over some of the sophomores that moved out, over these 2 stud sophomore corners we had last year that are now transfer portaled out, that were brought in by Kleiman. Like, would those guys be playing? I don't think a lot of the starters you see right now that are veterans would be over some of the younger guys. And the younger guys, are they developed enough under NDSU's program to be able to take over from the seniors? That clearly is not true as well. So we don't have as strong of development. We don't have as much talent or depth as we had in the past. And you can see it. When Cole Wininski goes down, the whole defense looks worse. We lost our stud middle linebacker in game 2, and the whole linebacking core suddenly couldn't tackle. That is not standard NDSU operating procedure in the last 10 to 12 years. So the depth just isn't there, and the backfill of the recruits isn't there. So when poking jabs at the SDSU in 2024, number one, I truly am intrigued to see how your guys' recruiting classes pan out. But that's not to say NDSU will just jump right back in and win natty titles. Not what I'm saying whatsoever. They're going to have to prove it to me in the developmental stage for us to see that. So,
yeah, you brought up a point.
Well, I mean, if you're short on linebackers, maybe you can just bring Nick DeLuca back, and he can just.
Yeah, I think we got some of these guys with eligibility years. I'm a Cowboys fan. There's a backup quarterback there. We could bring him back. Use him as a wideout or something. Bring Trey in. Bring him back.
You brought up one of the points where I think that where I don't think NDSU has a good chance to win this game, and it is tackling. I think that our running game is so good, and our offensive line is dominant enough that they'll make space for our guys to get into the second level. And when you got Isaiah Davis and Amar Johnson coming at you, you have to tackle well. And I will credit SIU tackled extremely well.
That was so key for them.
Yes, and it kept them in the game. It kept us from having chunk plays. It made us punt the ball more than normal. And I haven't seen that from NDSU, and saw that from an NDSU standpoint, that would worry me a lot in terms of if you'd be able to tackle well enough to keep us from getting first downs.
That's well said, Ben. And Joshua Hoffman just had that question, bring one player back. I'd say it's that linebacker that we just don't have right now. We had in the past. You had Grant Olson, who just sat in the middle. You had Nick DeLuca. I guess Jabril Cox was on the outside, but you could have counted him. And then, of course, Jackson Henke was the man.
Yeah.
Just sitting there headhunting right in the middle. And we just don't have that, call him farm boy, hay bale throwing, just big neck rolled linebacker who just sits there and gets 13, 14 tackles a game. And that's been really suspect in terms of stopping the run. And SDSU, boy, Amar Johnson and Isaiah Davis, they have reminded me what elite running backs can do. NDSU for too long, they've just said, well, just any running back can go behind that offensive line. watching those two reminds me of what Bruce Andersons were capable of, and that Lightning and Flash was capable of back in the day, and Kobe Johnson's, and just really, really, it sucks it's not my team, but it's fun to see that talent beyond just getting 3 or 4 yards and mostly just getting tackled. So it's pretty cool.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
The other thing that I have confidence from an SDSU standpoint is just that I don't think that NDSU can come up with an offensive game plan to have enough success outside of what I mentioned earlier. But I think that they're too reliant on the QB run. And I think that we've shown against teams like Montana State that it just doesn't work against us. Our D lines are too good and stay too fresh. Our linebackers rally to the ball fast enough, and when we need it, our secondary can come in and tackle. So unless something completely changes, I have a hard time seeing NDSU coming up with an offensive game plan to have a lot of success against SDSU's defense.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Tyler Roll's game plans overall. The reality is it's very scripted, and it looks like it's well executed for about a quarter and a half, and then you have to go off script when you're a coordinator. The adjustments are made, the game is adjusted, and at that point, we revert back to just being this weird running team that does A-gap power on every 3rd and 4. But like for the first quarter, it looks really good, and then it disappears. So if you guys are like, what the heck? NDSU, this offense, it is good. Crap, they're scoring, they're moving. Give it till about the 3rd quarter. See what happens. So, yep.
Hey, Chad, can you pull up Ron's stupid comment first?
Stupid comment.
Ron, I love you, but this is a stupid comment. Jack should have played some FBS teams this year. There are 4 people on this podcast that are fans of teams that will promise you they would have played an FBS team if they could. Both teams.
In fact, we had one pull out.
It is not for lack of trying. Yeah, we tried to leg lock them in and they just jumped out. So we don't need to go into that joke. Speaking of which, we should bring up our sponsors. We have skipped most of the things we do because Matt, you're just awesome. But Matt, I have to ask you, have you ever had your curds burgled?
Oh boy.
Or have you ever burgled curds?
Or do you know what the Curder Burger is?
Or do you know what the Curder Burger or the Curd Burglar is?
Is this Culver's?
Culver's. This
Yes.
is Culver's. Yes.
My cousin Jordan, we do Special Olympics with him every year. He's 19 now, just graduated. Culver's has been his favorite thing since the day he was 6 years old and could understand what Culver's was. And we go there every time. So Culver's is legitimately like the best restaurant on planet Earth. Love it. I don't know all the specific terms, but I believe you're talking about something with Culver's. Love that place.
They may be show specific. That might be a show specific thing.
Well, they're a great sponsor. They're amazing.
Yes, they're a great sponsor.
They are.
Brookings Watertown Culver's. Go get the Curder Burger. Maybe burgle your friends' curds. Maybe they'll burgle your curds. Who knows? It depends if you can catch them and if they're looking.
Steal your kids' Scoopy tokens, whatever it takes.
And yes, your kids, if they can't read, you can just take Scoopy tokens and you tell them it's a receipt and they won't understand, and get yourself something nice later on your way home from work. That's how that works.
You guys have brought Pat McAfee energy to Culver's, and that's a compliment because he's a jackrabbit. So the Pat McAfees of Culver's. This is beautiful.
That is. They should pay us more, probably not. We're probably tarnishing their image. Our last idea was to make a Curd Burglar mascot for Culver's that kills the Hamburglar from McDonald's, and it gets darker from there. So,
well, if there's a costume, Rev will wear it. He'll rock in Frisco.
Yes, we need to talk to Rev.
We should get a
Dallas about getting a Curd Burglar
costume sponsored by Culver's, and then get him on TV.
Right.
Oh my God.
You could have the stripes and then the head could just be a cheese curd.
This could probably happen.
Yes. I want it to be something upsetting along the lines of Gritty for the Flyers, for Philadelphia Flyers.
or maybe like the old Quiznos commercials. Those were a little bit odd too.
The whitest kids I know for the grape soda.
The other sponsor,
I'm not saying the lines on here. You gotta. I'll send you.
You gotta Google it.
Weird hamster things.
Yeah.
The other
the whitest
sponsor,
kids you know, grape soda.
The other sponsor we have to thank is Cubbies. The best spot in Brookings to go watch Jack's games, go watch the coaches show. They have great food, great beer. Thank you to Cubby Sports Bar and Grill in Brookings.
Hey Ben, you know what else you can do at Cubby's?
What can I do?
You can also burgle curds and chislic.
Yeah, they do have
And
curds
drink a
and
beer.
chislic.
They have both
And
while
lots
you're
of beer.
drinking a beer. Which
And
makes it
Fridays
less
they have
felony.
a triple shot for the price of a double. So that's not a
Hey.
terrible thing.
There we
Yeah,
go.
it seems like a bad idea though. But I'm all.
Oh,
I mean,
that's a good idea.
if you're looking to make bad decisions, go to Cubby's. They'll help you out.
It'll start with good decisions, and then the rest is up to you, really.
Lastly, after this weekend, it's a home game, and we're playing NDSU. We plan on scoring a bunch of touchdowns. You're likely going to be able to go to the Jackrabbit Central, and on Touchdown Tuesday, for every touchdown we have, it's an extra 5% off. And so hopefully we'll see a high score, and you can get a bunch of percentage off at Jackrabbit Central, your best spot for Jackrabbit apparel and gifts and whatever you need. Thank you to them. All right, should we quickly recap the games from last week?
Yeah, do people want to know? They can also listen to the FN podcast as well. But
right.
we always go over it here as well.
That's true. Real quickly, Tarleton beat UCA 25-23, covered the spread. Montana State lost to Idaho. That was a huge game. Huge win for Idaho. Idaho won 24-21. UND had to go to overtime to beat Indiana State, which I wasn't able to go back and watch that one. Did anybody watch that?
I saw some of it. Yeah, it was not good. They did not play well.
It's not.
And
it was
Indy State did play well. Like it wasn't. It was playing down to Indiana State's level, but also Indiana State all year has had an issue where they just don't finish drives. If they'd have finished drives against South Dakota, they'd have won that game. Like they missed 2 field goals against USD, and so they converted some of those into touchdowns. But also UND didn't do that. I mean, it's not fun watching a team that beat you become dog shit.
Well, yeah, how does that feel as an NDSU fan to see them just lay an absolute
chime in,
leg?
Brian Thompson. We know you're an NDSU fan.
I heard all this. My dad taught me the ways, guys. This is generational turnover here. You know.
That's true.
When NDSU was dominating Division II in the 80s and winning title after title after title, there are losses to UND spread throughout that sucker. That UND got up for that one. Yeah, I always got mad when people called that this was SDSU Super Bowl. No, this is UND's Super Bowl. Like that, legitimately 1D2 title, hockey school. That defines their season right there. I truly believe that's a real thing, that they put it all in and they might win a playoff game now. Who knows?
But to see them go after they beat NDSU to go lay an absolute egg against UNI, and then have to go to overtime to beat Indiana State. I mean, yeah, it's their Super Bowl, but man, like you start to question, like, are they even a good team? Like, you know what I mean? And like, how did they play like that against us?
Yeah, I know. And Jamie said that. Jamie said he's not convinced UND makes the playoffs the way the bubble's going to look. So
right.
We'll have to see.
Yeah. All right. Outside of that, we've got SIU went and beat Western Illinois 63-0. Western Illinois is an absolute dumpster fire. Be fun if SDSU...
necessary. Like you don't have to beat them by 65.
That's punitive.
I know.
That is.
That's
punitive.
That's just mean.
What happened between the West and the South over there? Like
NDSU that was a home game, right? Yeah, they beat Murray State at home 38-6. Matt, any comments from that game? Were you there?
I wasn't there. Nope, we were planning to it, and then my brother-in-law who pulls the rig in, all his kids got sick, and then my kids got sick, and the rest is history. But no, it wasn't at the Murray State game, but pretty standard operating procedure for NDSU. Got up really quick, got up early, started easing back, pulled the starters. So Nothing too special from it.
So they've
Yeah.
had 2 layup games before they come play us. That doesn't hurt.
Yeah,
that's nice.
yep, that's not so bad.
We don't know what that's like.
It isn't. Somebody tweeted that about you guys. You guys on this year's schedule, you avoid Western Illinois and
Mhm.
is it
Murray State.
Murray State?
Murray
Yeah,
and
the
Indiana
teams you
State.
avoid
And
are
Indiana.
trash. I mean,
Yes.
The 3
yeah.
bottom feeders. Yeah, pretty
unreal. Yeah.
I've thrown a couple tantrums this year about the conference schedule. Hey, did you see the funnest fact about our schedule?
cool. What?
That every team, well, you've seen it. We've talked about it.
I
Matt,
had it up on the
that-
screen earlier.
That every team we play until Missouri State in conference gets to play Indiana State, have a bye, Murray or Western Illinois before they played us, which is basically a bye week for everybody.
That's unbelievable. That's unreal.
True,
Well,
It's just
Iron
really
Shark-
weird. It's just weird.
Iron sharpens iron, man.
I would have
It's been
appreciated
fun.
if
Yeah.
you didn't pull the starters so early in that game because you didn't cover the stupid spread by half a point. I picked you to cover the spread and you couldn't do it.
Great teams
Yeah,
win.
the hook gotcha. Definitely.
Thanks, Matt.
You got it. Good teams win. Great teams cover the spread.
Yep, exactly. And then Youngstown State covered the spread against Missouri State. They won 44-28. UNI beat Illinois State 24-21. UNI has had a nice bounce back after losing to SDSU. They're looking pretty good right now. It'll be interesting to see if they can keep it going. And then obviously SDSU covered their spread, which we thought was a lot of people thought this spread was way too big. We ended up covering it by a bunch. We won 37-3 down in the Dakota Dump. So outside of that, let's quickly, Chad, do you have the top 25?
I sure do. Just let me pull it
So-
up here.
Matt, while he's pulling that up, just out of curiosity, has Taco King told you why he's so mad at SDSU's kicker? Are you aware of his vendetta with Hunter Dustman, who just won Special Teams Player of the Week?
Boy, Brian and I, we've been DMing talking a lot this year. We do in Frisco, and he has not let me in on this SDSU kicker thing. I'm just
Oh man, he's been on our pod every
It's
week
been-
pointing
it's
out how
been-
much he hates our kicker.
It's been since the Illinois State game, and Hunter missed 2 field goals. And let's
that's
say
right.
he
It
had
cost
a
him the money.
wager on that
Yep.
game. Yeah.
That's right. I'm sorry,
More
Taco
than a
King.
nickel.
I failed you.
Last thing to recap the picks, Brendan and I and the computer all went 4-4. So we're sitting similar records we were last week, except for 4 more wins and 4 more losses. Top 25, we got SDSU obviously at number 1, Idaho 2, Montana 3, Furman 4, Montana State 5. And then for Valley teams, you got SIU all the way up to number 8 now. USD fell back to 9. NDSU up to number 11. UNI up to number 12. And UND at 13. And Youngstown State at 15. Just a lot of Missouri Valley teams. We got 7 in the top 15, which is bonkers. It'll be interesting to see, Matt, you guys talked about, I think you had a taco bet on the number of Missouri Valley teams that are going to make the playoffs. It's weird to see this many. I mean, we're used to seeing a lot of teams in the top 25, but 7 in the top 15 is kind of nuts.
Yeah, Kyler and Jamie, I think, went on the over for 5.5. I think the week that we did it for playoff teams, they're very convinced the Valley's going to get 6 this year. A lot of things can affect that, and there's going to be a lot of cannibalization of each other over the next last 3 weeks. But boy, the Valley has a real shot to put a lot of teams into the field this year, so it could be a lot of fun.
Yep. Yeah.
When's the last time there was 2 different positions with ties in it on the FCS on the FN poll?
Ooh, that'd be a Lawrence
12 and
question, but I think it's
15.
been a while. Yeah, he said the results were really
Lawrence.
close this week.
Come here. I got something to ask you. Get over
Um,
here. Tell him we're
so-
here.
You talked about, I guess, Chad, do you have the Missouri Valley standings by chance?
Sure
I'm
do.
just going to show those quick. One of the fallout things for USD after this game is, and I think we talked about it a little bit, was that they had a chance to be the number 1 in the nation. However, they lose this game. I mentioned it earlier. They got Southern Illinois, UND coming up. And then they're going to be fighting for their 7th win down in Western Illinois, possibly. which is always a weird place to play, especially when it's late in the year. It could be snowing. But they are sitting still at number 2 in the Valley. UNI, like I said, they're back up to number 3 now. They've had a good conference slate outside of playing SDSU. And then you've got NDSU, SIU, UND, and Youngstown State all at 3 and 2. And then Illinois State, Missouri State at 2 and 3, Murray State 1 and 4, Indiana State, Western Illinois at 0 and 5. So that rounds out the FCS and top 25 and Valley talk.
Matt, I got a question for Matt. Since we were talking about the Big Boy Show, and we've had Alex commenting the whole time here, and it reminded me, you guys have the Versus simulator. Well, Alex made our own simulator that will actually shut down what we assume is a 2012 Gateway computer because it's so strong. So he's been doing that every week.
Keeps up with that 2012 internet he's got.
But we love you, Alex. But in all seriousness, he came up with an idea that I'm curious for your thoughts on. So I'm not going to give my thoughts on. What if, because the committee recently, we've been talking about playoff games and teams and who we think are going to make it. What if instead of the committee, they used a BCS formula with the stats poll, the effing poll, because we make a real poll and the coaches should not be voting, and then a computer ranking or a conglomeration of computer rankings. Computer, shut up. Don't. My Alexa's named that.
That's your fault.
So I'm curious how it is my fault. I forget. So I'm curious, how would you feel about that? Since the committee's had, like, let's be honest, legitimate, large, scandalous things come out in the last, let's say, 8 months from when they last picked. How would you feel about that, especially if they go to seeding 16 teams?
I'm more inclined to entertain something like that because of just last year. But I was a foot soldier, just pounding the table that the committee actually does a really good job for years. And I think when you look back on semifinal, quarterfinals, I mean, everybody's going to get 1 or 2 wrong of who should have been in or who shouldn't on a 24-team field. And everyone's going to get 1 seed that's way off. But when you look at like 6 of the 8 seeds continuously throughout the years, they're pretty good picks. And when you look at the majority of the field, who's in, who's out, they're really good picks. But boy, last year was egregious in terms of like Weber State, UND, the hosting with the bidding, and Montana, them being involved in terms of like who's on the committee and who's not. I am hopeful last year was an outlier where the committee went, we screwed the pooch and didn't stick to a good formula. So I'm not willing to go full computer BCS or that style yet. I think you guys who are involved with Craig Haley and the FCS Fans Nation poll do an incredible job from a human standpoint of watching the games and keeping up. So I'm not willing to punt into the AI quite yet because I'm hoping last year was an outlier, because beyond last year, I really think the committee did a good job. So we'll hold pause for that.
Yeah, for me, when it comes to the committee, it wasn't so much that they do a bad job regularly or anything, but some foundational things came out that really tarnished the reputation. I mean, I've stood up for the committee before, not nearly as strongly as you and Kyler and Jamie have, when rightfully so at the time. I'm not saying that was wrong or you were bad or anything for it, but I felt bad about standing up for that after that stuff came out, because then you sit and go, well, how long has this been going on?
That's true. I'll give you that for sure. And it was last year was bad. The 2 or 3 things that came out was really tarnished the reputation. It's just going to make people think it more and more and more moving forward. So hopefully they have I don't want to ramble onto this because I know we're far into the show, but this year will not be easy for them. It will be one of the hardest years to seed the field.
Absolutely.
It'll be SDSU won by 7,000 miles, and then good luck, because Montana State, Montana, and Idaho are already setting you up for we should have been 2-3, whatever, and then a 1-loss Delaware, and then you're going to throw maybe NDSU in there, and then what about Incarnate Word with their 1 loss? I mean, you're just going to go down the line. Good luck to the committee this year. It'll be interesting for you Jack fans, because I think it'll be the 1 seed to see who ends up in those slots on your side of the bracket. So
Yeah.
We got-
So go ahead, Ren.
It boggles my mind that we've progressed to the point where people are talking shit to each other in the chat. That's all I was going to say. It's hilarious.
they were
love it.
expecting it
So-
from us, and now they're mad. So they're like, we'll do it to each other.
So somebody was asking earlier about, you just mentioned NDSU with possible seed. Obviously, if you lose to SDSU, it doesn't hurt you a whole lot. However, you still have SIU and UNI on your schedule. You got a SIU team that's playing pretty good football, and a UNI team that's playing better than they had been. So I guess that the UNI one is at UNI too, which is tough. What's your kind of outlook on the rest of the season?
Yeah, if NDSU loses to SDSU here, obviously that's the third loss. There no team with 3 losses is getting a seed, so they're playing over Thanksgiving weekend. Beyond that, the SIU and UNI game to have a chance at the playoffs. It's crazy to say that about NDSU. They have to split that at a minimum, right? And I'd say splitting that, I think that win has to come against SIU. But losing right at the end against UNI is not going to be a good taste for the committee and their resume. At that point, you basically have a home win against SIU, who should be a playoff team as well. And is a one ranked win good enough to get you in? Now, the committee will view it for ranked wins at the time, which may give them an advantage. But boy, they will be, if they are 7-4, NDSU will play on Thanksgiving weekend. And I predict they will be one of the last 4 in. And I don't think it's right, but I think their reputation will assist them there. And if they end up with 5 losses, they are undoubtedly out of the field. There's just no way they're going to get into the playoffs. But I believe their third loss is coming up here pretty soon. And then they have to split that UNI SIU. Otherwise, it's a lot of trouble. And somebody poked fun at me, one of the great Jackrabbit fans on Twitter, about like, oh, you won't play in your mall this year in December. I guess outlook-wise, you'd win in round 1, you travel in round 2, and then if an upset happens, maybe you get a final home game. And for as much as I've kind of dogged NDSU here, outside of SDSU, maybe the Montana schools, I don't know if there's a lot of other people who will still want to play them, even if they're 7-4. I just don't think if you're Furman or Delaware or anybody else, I still think they could beat NDSU, but I don't think those fans are going to be like, yay, here come the Bison. So
I think how they lose on Saturday might affect that too,
Right.
if they do end up backing into the playoffs. If they
Absolutely.
lose a really tight game, that makes them look better. If they lose like USD lost last weekend, well then, they don't look as sharp.
And despite how that USD final score was, if they get blown out by SDSU, that's 3 blowout losses. UND destroyed them. SDSU in this scenario destroys them. And that USD game got closer near the end, but it was not pretty through 3 quarters. And then you add another loss on top of that. It's not like you're losing close. So their reputation might be the only thing that saves them at that point.
What do you think the spread will be on this game?
Oh, I think Vegas 8.5, maybe something like that. If I'm not big on the betting things, I don't know if Vegas does 8.5 lines, but I could see him going something like that, and then just banking off SDSU. People being like, "Oh, of course they'll cover," and sports might be completely rigged all the way up to Vegas. Who knows? But I cannot believe how close those lines actually get. But I think it will be a little bit over a touchdown favor in SDSU. So.
FCS Reddit had us as 12, I think. So
yeah, we've
the only
seen
line I've seen. So
Vegas has not been having low spreads for us, and especially being a home game, I would not be surprised to see it closer to 14. Honestly, so it'll be interesting to see.
So here's a question for you, Matt. Say that scenario does happen where NDSU ends up with a home quarterfinal game. Does that desperation of that scenario bring the crowd back?
I really don't think it does. I think I won't go too much into it, but I have stood on this hill quite a bit where I say the championship years are outliers, because I went into a lot of dome games where Subway footlongs got you a free ticket and a stop and go fill up at the gas station got you a free ticket. And 12,000 people in the dome was a really good crowd for Fargo. Granted, Fargo has grown, but I feel like we've returned to normalcy for the Dome to get 12 to 13,000 people. And a lot of people just don't realize that because they have recency bias of the last decade. But I've watched bad NDSU football. I've watched NDSU football in low, not filled stadiums, and I don't think it's enough to get people back into it. I also do think there's something about the elderly folks not filling seats post COVID, and my age range. Think about it. If you guys were, and you guys are diehard fans, but think about the sophomores or juniors in college right now that were in Frisco last year. How passionate will they be about SDSU football till the day they die? And I was already a fan, but that was my age range in 2011. And now all of us are 33 to 36, and we have 2-3 kids running around the house. And I honestly think that has a lot to do with it, besides the fact of fatigue and just natural wear and tear and prices. But I think those are two big factors people don't think about. I went down a rabbit hole there, but yeah, I don't think it'll bring the fans back.
We've talked about that with our fan base starting to show up. Obviously, the national title, huge factor. But there is a part of it as well where you look at, like, they talk about Griffin Wilde, who, is our stud freshman. He's going to be somebody opposing teams hate forever. He grew up with Jackrabbit gear in his bedroom, and not to say we haven't had players who did that before, but it's students. It's the culture is finally being built. The culture that was never there for Jackrabbit football is being built. And now, like you said, we may not have been winning national titles, maybe, but we were still a good team. And you had student section growing and getting more into it. And now a lot of those people have graduated and are coming as well. And I think that's happening to a similar degree, different arc, because it took longer and everything down in Brookings. And that's why you're seeing the growth in crowds down here.
Yeah, I've joked with Kyle and some of you other guys about everyone has the 12-step program to becoming Bison fans. And I saw you hit step 11 here just a week ago, which was you were checking blue dots and green dots on your sellout pages. I was like, oh, we're almost there. Almost completed it. You guys were like, only 4 more tickets. Look at the dots. I remember doing that 6 years ago. I'm like, they're almost there. 12-step program. Next year, their running back will get 3 yards, and they'll all tweet how terrible their offense is. So it'll be fun to watch.
I've got a friend who's a good friend of mine who's a big NDSU fan, who he says, "Oh, they grew up so fast." I don't take that as an insult. That's funny. And for the record, for people like Ron and stuff who are like, "Oh, look at the hate," Matt is too nice for us to just dog all show. First off, he's joining us from San Antonio, Texas. I'm not going to do that. I don't dog my friends that are. Is Ben frozen, or is that just your face?
I don't know. Can you guys?
You are frozen. Someone take a
frozen.
screenshot of that. That's
you
hilarious.
can hear me, but my face is.
Honestly, I said the
What's
thing
with
about
the internet these days?
I said the thing about the dots and the 12-step. I was like, I thought it was a pretty good joke, but Ben is not taking this well at all.
I can't even.
It's off-putting.
Just live with it. Just live with it.
Yeah,
you are a puppet.
Live with Ben's disappointed face. Everything you say, that's Ben's reaction. We need a slide of that we can throw up when he's not happy.
I've mastered ventriloquism.
He's so good at it. His face doesn't even move.
Ben, Blake, if you're being held against your will.
I'm trying.
Oh my God.
This is so stupid.
The more you do it, the funnier it gets, man. Just throw up the AI graphic instead.
Yeah, there you go. That'll be better.
That is too good.
What I was trying to say is I don't do that to my friends too much. Now, if Matt was like Chris Hansen, I would shit talk that guy all day long. Not because he's a bad person or anything like that, but God, he's someone I want to shit talk. Like I'll shit talk that guy. There's plenty of NDSU fans that I will just talk shit to without a problem. But I always like to do it before the game. I don't like to do it after the game. Especially on Twitter, because I feel like I'm talking to you and my other friends. And I know you can take it, but I don't do that. Oh, Ben's not disappointed anymore.
I should have put his face full screen. That was a good call, Seth. Sorry. That would have been wise. I missed your comment. Didn't get there in time.
Yeah, and Brendan, to bounce off that, yeah, same thing, man. Going down to Frisco is it's just a trip, no matter who's there for 'em, like Kyler, Jamie, Chris, all of us, and we had a blast with you guys last year. The karaoke, um, your wife
my
was a
God.
blast hanging out with Brendan, and just to get to know you guys more and meet the Gronowski clan, and yeah, we intentionally want to go hang out with people that are going to make that experience better. Even Sam Herder, he messages us every year. He's like, "Where are you guys going to be?" I know that's where the big wide variety of fans is at, and yeah, it just makes it more fun when we do things like this. So always great.
We've had plenty of times, Chad and I, where it's gotten testy with NDSU fans we don't know. That's happened more than
No, come on.
once.
We're big
Yeah,
targets. I think that's why.
one comment, and all of a sudden people are upset. So, like, brick doesn't burn, which is a shame. Like, I don't know, they didn't take that too well that one time.
And apparently, you can't chant the Sioux Suck chant in the entry to the Fargo Dome. I learned the hard way when I was maybe intoxicated.
You should
Ben
be
is-
able to.
Chad is the captain of trying to do something nice and like try to endear himself to people, but it comes off the wrong way.
Oh, like
I
that
will-
time, 4 years ago at home?
Yeah, I'll never forget it. These
I
people,
was
these
had a
opposing
hat on.
fans
I'm
are
like,
leaving,
cool.
and oh yeah, that one too. I was
Yeah,
going to bring that one up, but like opposing fans are leaving, and I know Chad's being genuine. He's like, "Thanks for coming, thanks for coming." But what they were hearing was because he's excited. We just won. I think it might have been an NDSU game, and he was trying to be a nice host and be like, "Thanks for coming," except it was coming off as "Thanks for coming, and they were getting mad. And he's like, "Why are they so mad?" I'm like, "Chad, like
It's the tone.
it's the delivery's not great right now. You got to just let them go." Like,
If you watch our
drive
podcast,
safe.
my deliveries are always a little off.
Oh, it's too good. I do like that
It
you
was
all
so funny.
talks in the beginning, though, Brennan. That's the way to do it. It's
It's more fun,
yeah. Then you own it afterwards. Just the way it goes.
right? Because being a Jacks fan, I know how much that shit stings when you're done. And I'm like, don't talk to me. If we lose this game, genuinely don't talk to me for 3 goddamn days. Like, I might take a day off at work and be like, leave me alone, or I'm gonna burn your fucking hospital to ground. I'm kidding. I wouldn't burn a hospital to ground. I'm saying that for legal purposes, but like, I will be an ornery little princess.
Cue the Dark Knight walk away scene with the Joker.
Right.
You know, my job is preventing fires in hospitals, right?
Challenge accepted.
Hero.
We've reached hard mode.
Oh no!
All right.
Where is Jim Poppin when you need him?
Yeah, we're about to that point. Before we go, Matt, one last. Give us your prediction for the game.
Yes. Oh, we almost forgot. That'd have been terrible.
Yeah.
We know what it's gonna be anyway.
Yeah, it's
Danny,
no
it's-
mystery. I do. I'm the only person in the nation that believes 1,000,000% SDSU is going 15-0. Felt it since January. You guys will win the national title. Go back to back. And I'll give NDSU a little bit more credit here. If the line's 12, I'll go a little bit under. I'll give the Jacks one of those classics Brooking wins where maybe NDSU catches up a little bit more near the end. So I'll go like 31-20. We'll go 11 points for a Jackrabbit victory, continuing on that 15-0. And the last thing I'll say before you guys' predictions, trademark this. If you haven't thought of it, I'll be shocked if you haven't heard of this. Buckle up. When you go back to back and you win it all, your t-shirt, you guys make these back and then the bunny ears, two bunny ears, and then put back below it. Back,
I do like
bunny
that.
ears, back. Right there.
I thought he was
It's all
going
yours.
Brendan,
I want no credit
Brendan
for it.
Chad.
Trademark
like
that
it.
sucker right now, because some Shields or somebody's going to do it, but I want you guys to have it. You could sell 1 billion of them when it happens. I'd go print them right now. So back, rabbit ears, back. There you go. So, and
I like it.
Corey, I do not have a Mark Gronowski picture. It's a full-size poster. And
Fathead.
Allison loves it. So, yeah.
Oh, he's a good-looking guy. So.
Don't make it. I'm not going to say that.
All right. Well, again, thank you, Matt, for coming on. We appreciate you very much. and we'll always love having you here. For those that don't know, which I'm sure most of the people on here know, but go check out Matt and Kyler and Jamie on the FCS Fans Nation podcast. They do an amazing job covering the whole FCS. Matt does an amazing job hosting the whole thing. Nobody else like him, and he's good for the FCS. And we appreciate everything you do. I know it's not easy, and I know it takes a lot of time. So thank you for that.
Appreciate that, Ben. And I'm sorry to cut you off, but
no, you're good.
I know you guys do an absolute ton for South Dakota State and a ton for the FCS in general. And I see a lot of the back statistics of the YouTube platforms that we're all building together. And it is fun to see your guys' analytical growth of like the viewership, and just all the data for you guys is just flying up. And from those intros to everything, and Background Chad, which is the famous nickname, to chocolate milk in the background, and Ben, you're hosting. It's no mystery why it's happening. And no matter where SDSU is, when we're playing each other in the MAC or whatever the heck exists in 10 years, if it ever goes that way, you guys will continue to be a staple of it. So I really do appreciate you having me. And finally, I'll let you talk and probably on the show. So I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. And other than that, anybody else have anything else? Brendan, Chad?
No, I was just gonna say, like, I feel like we're the light version of Pat McAfee of My Life's Stupid. How did this happen? When we have
for sure,
people walk up at the tail and be like, "Oh, I listened to you," or like, man, just crazy stuff. It just the tailgate that we were able to put together. I don't know how this happened. We started with like 20 viewers, and shout out to the OGs.
I had a really cool interaction with the Emery family. Shout out to them at the Dome. They sat in front of me and put up with my shenanigans the whole game and talked with me. It was, yeah, it was fun. They seemed to enjoy it, so I apologize, but they didn't care.
I'm sure they enjoyed it a lot more after the first quarter was done.
Yeah,
I missed half the first quarter.
That was for the best, man, for everybody.
Thumper, as Ben ends this thing, do you think we could replicate through the screen our viral reel from last year we did in the bar? If I go, let's see, be this side.
Oh yeah, we could.
So you'd have to use your other hand going across, and you'd have to knock it down. Oh, other way.
Oh, that's right. You have to.
Oh,
it's backwards for some reason. It's backwards. Yep. Point the other way.
It's backwards on mine. On my
yeah,
screen,
it's backwards on every
other
way.
There you go. Yep. And then you go up.
Yeah.
And then,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
There you go.
All right. Thanks, Matt.
All right. We've jumped the shark on
this. Thanks to all our fans. As always, go big, go blue, go Jacks.
Go Jacks.